Hello everybody, Sylvia Serpentine here with a new drawing of a gray tree frog, tadpole and adult. Starting first with the tadpole. I'm actually using reference pictures for this. I don't do that a whole lot with a lot of my artwork, but I'm trying to get into the habit of doing it more for more realistic things. Using a reference photo really has helped me kind of get form and function and color and just the way the body parts relate to each other. Kind of helped me get that down a lot more. Sometimes I will still trace silhouette outlines, which we'll see later with the adult frog. But it has helped a lot in just sort of getting more accurate proportions. That said, I don't have a very realistic style, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm pretty happy with my own personal style that I don't even really know how to describe. It's not really cartoony, but it's not very realistic. It's just my style. So we see this little tadpole starting to take shape here, and color I should say. Gray tree frog tadpoles are really awesome because they have these bright orange tails sometimes. It actually depends on the predators and their environment. But these bright orange tails are really cool, really neat looking. That is a definitive identifier of a gray tree frog tadpole. This guy is coming together pretty well. His colors and pattern are developing. Usually when I'm doing these drawings, I'm experimenting with all sorts of different texture, brushes, whatever. So I never really know what I'm going to get. So moving on to the adult frog. Now in this one, I've used a reference photo that I actually traced the silhouette on to get the right body shape. Frogs are actually kind of awkward to draw because they have a shape that when you see it, it looks like what it should, but when you're drawing it, it looks really odd. So I've used this photo to just trace the outline of it. I moved the foot out a little bit just to give it a little bit more dynamic pose. Then I got rid of the outline, and I'm using this picture I took of a frog in my yard to kind of get an idea for the pattern and color. So I'm going about trying to put the pattern in. As I was doing it, I was realizing he actually has a lot more complicated pattern than it looks like at first. So I kind of simplified it a little bit, just because I wasn't really sure how to go about doing it. So as I get a little bit more practice with these using reference photos, I'll probably develop some ways to do more of this stuff. Now we see this guy start to take shape with the outline. Outlines always make a huge difference on top of the line work. They're kind of annoying to do. I have pretty shaky lines because I have a very sketchy kind of drawing style. So then trying to get a nice solid outline after being very light and sketchy is actually pretty challenging for me. So I've recently been working on a lot more line work to try and get my lines a little cleaner, clearer, straighter, that sort of thing. Now we start to bring in the color. So once again, kind of experimenting with all sorts of things here, so you'll see colors pop up and disappear, and patterns pop up and disappear. I am really enjoying doing more digital art. It's given me so many new opportunities, new options to work with, but I'm also not used to doing it, so constantly experimenting, trying to figure out new things. Going in and working on that pattern is really making it obvious how complex these patterns actually are. When I start going in and trying to do these colors and trying to make it look like the picture, it's like, wow, this is a lot harder than it would appear. These things have so much more complexity in their skin tones and patterns and just the depth of it that it's kind of taken for granted. And I already have a huge appreciation for nature as it is, so when I'm doing things like this, I get much more of an appreciation for nature. You'll see as I'm going in and doing pattern, these bright yellow patches on my little froggy here. Those are only visible when their legs are stretched out. So when they're sitting nice and tight and curled up, which is how you usually see frogs, their legs are pressed tight against their body, you don't actually see any of that yellow at all. And in fact, a lot of adult frogs don't really have it. That's why I used this photo of this frog I found in my yard. It was one of the first that I'd found with such bright yellow patches. I can only assume that's some sort of defense, so if they're trying to get away from predators, they jump and there's this flash of bright yellow and it can startle something. At least that's usually how bright coloration works, but I don't actually know for sure in this case. I tried to get that sort of moist shine you get on amphibians, and it was a little difficult, but overall I'm pretty happy with how this guy turned out. He looks pretty good, I think. So here is our little gray tree frog.